Hello everyone. Today we will study about development of esophagus. Esophagus develops from the foregut and it develops from the part of the foregut between pharynx and stomach. Foregut presents a median laryngotracheal groove and this groove bulges forwards and caudally to form tracheobronchial diverticulum or the respiratory diverticulum. Here you can see the laryngotracheal groove is developing from the foregut and then it is bulging forwards and caudally. This is bulging forwards and caudally. Here you can see this is bulging forward and caudally, and it will form the respiratory diverticulum or the tracheobronchial diverticulum. Now the tracheoesophageal septum will develop and it will divide the trachea and esophagus. Trachea is present ventrally and the esophagus is present on the dorsal part. So what happens? Initially formation of the laryngotracheal groove in the foregut region, then groove is bulging forwards and caudally and it will form the respiratory diverticulum. Here the respiratory diverticulum has been formed here, and then formation of the tracheoesophageal septum, which is dividing this region into ventrally trachea and dorsally esophagus. Here the formation of tracheoesophageal septum. Initially what happens? There is the formation of the tracheoesophageal fold. Here you can see the tracheoesophageal folds are forming and these folds are growing towards each other and they fuse in the midline. So both folds are forming between esophagus and trachea, and these folds are going towards each other and they meet in the midline and lead to formation of septum, and this tracheoesophageal septum has been formed, which is dividing the esophagus and trachea. Now initially the lumen of the esophagus is almost obliterated by proliferation of the endodermal cells. The lining and epithelium of esophagus is endodermal, and initially these cells will proliferate and they will fill the lumen. Later on these cells break down and again recanalize to form the esophagus. So this lining epithelium of esophagus is derived from the endoderm of the foregut, and connective tissue, muscles, stroma, they all are derived from the splanchnopleuric mesoderm around the foregut. In the upper 1/3 part of the esophagus, skeletal muscles are present. In the middle 1/3 has mixed type of muscles are there, means striated and non-striated, both muscles are there, and in the lower third only smooth muscles are present in the esophagus. Then if there is failure of recanalization of the esophagus, and then it is called as esophageal atresia. So what is esophageal atresia? Due to failure of recanalization, esophageal atresia occur, and this is associated with tracheoesophageal fistula. And why the tracheoesophageal fistula is there? It is due to extreme posterior deviation of the tracheoesophageal septum. In esophageal atresia, fetus is unable to swallow the amniotic fluid. If it is unable to swallow the amniotic fluid, the amount of the amniotic fluid will be increasing. That's why it will lead to polyhydramnios. Polyhydramnios means excessive amniotic fluid around the baby. Now the newborn with the esophageal atresia accept the first feed normally, but when a subsequent feed are given, it will be regurgitated through the mouth and nose, and it will lead to respiratory distress and cyanosis. And what is the treatment of esophageal atresia? That is the surgical correction, and the survival rates are 85%. So if there is failure of recanalization of the developing esophagus, and it will lead to esophageal atresia, and it causes the clinical condition that is polyhydramnios, and esophageal atresia is usually associated with tracheoesophageal fistula. Now what is esophageal stenosis? If there is lumen, if the lumen of the esophagus is narrow, then this condition is called as esophageal stenosis, and usually it occurs in lower 1/3 of the esophagus. If there is complete esophageal complete loss of recanalization of esophagus, then it is called as atresia, and if there is partial failure of recanalization, then will lead to esophageal stenosis. And this stenosis also may occur due to some vascular abnormalities like dysphagia, lysoria. And the symptoms of esophageal stenosis are almost similar to esophageal atresia. Now initially the esophagus is short, and later it will but it elongates due to formation of neck and descent of diaphragm, and also due to descent of heart and lung. But in some conditions the esophagus fails to elongate, then it is condition is called as short esophagus. And because of short esophagus, stomach is pulled up in the esophageal hiatus of the diaphragm, and this condition is causing congenital hiatal hernia because of short esophagus. Now what is tracheoesophageal fistula? As we have discussed that if there is the non-formation of tracheoesophageal septum or extreme posterior deviation of the tracheoesophageal septum, then it will lead to formation of the tracheoesophageal fistula. So it is due to failure of separation of the tracheobranchial diverticulum from the esophagus, due to non-formation of the tracheoesophageal septum, or due to extreme posterior deviation of the tracheoesophageal septum. And in 85% of cases, lower segment of the esophagus communicates with the trachea. Here you can see the lower end of the esophagus is blind, upper end of the esophagus is blind, and lower end of the esophagus is communicating with the trachea. So lower segment of the esophagus is communicating with the trachea. That's why the air from the trachea is entering into the, here you can see air from the trachea is entering via esophagus into the stomach. That's why excessive air into the stomach is seen, and this excessive air present in the stomach, it is the diagnostic sign of tracheoesophageal fistula. And also in this condition, the infant vomits after every feed that is given to him or her. If the feed is given to baby, the feed will not pass further because esophageal lumen is closed, or upper segment of the esophagus is blind here. So food will regurgitate via the vomiting, and the lower end is connected with the trachea, so air will enter into the stomach. So both are the important sign of the tracheoesophageal fistula. Now types of tracheoesophageal fistula. Type 1, which is the most common type, in which upper part or the first proximal part of the esophagus has atresia, and lower end of the esophagus is connected with the trachea. In the second, upper end is blind and lower end is connected, but it is lower end has fibrous cord like okay. And in the third part, upper end and lower end both are connected with the trachea by a common opening. In the fourth type, upper end of the esophagus is connected with the trachea and lower end of the esophagus is blind. In the last type, here you can see upper end of the esophagus and lower end of the esophagus both are connected with the trachea, but by different opening. So these are the types of tracheoesophageal fistula. Now achalasia cardia. It is due to failure of the relaxation of the lower muscles in the lower part of the esophagus, or we can say if the lower esophageal sphincter fail to relax, that condition is called as achalasia cardia, and it is due to loss of ganglionic cells in the orbix plexus. How the clinically patient will present? Patient will complain difficulty in swallowing, and on barium swallow, the lower part of the esophagus presents a beak shaped narrowing or the bird beak deformity, and this is also called as rat tail sign. And here you can see the esophagus fails to dilate, and this proximal part of the esophagus will be dilated and food will not enter in the distal part, or it is just like bird beak deformity or pencil shaped narrowing, that is called as bird beak deformity, and patient will complain of difficulty in swallowing. So why the what is the reason of achalasia cardia? Because failure the loss of ganglionic cells in the orbix plexus, that lead to the lower esophageal sphincter fail to relax, and this is called as achalasia cardia. So that's all about esophagus, development of esophagus. Thank you.